Okay guys, CLQ here once again, showing you time and time again how to provide quality fucking Dota 2 content. So right now today, for the fucking legacy, we're gonna be fucking talking about the corrupt, broken CLQ MMR system. So we'll be watching a couple videos and commenting on what some personalities in the fucking Dota 2 industry have to say.
Gentlemen, it's Jinzo here. Today we shall be discussing the topic of Dota's MMR system. The acronym MMR in the game of Dota simply stands for your matchmaking rating. Now, the MMR system that we use in Dota today is based off the...
So I want to talk a little bit about this graph, you guys. See how there's a fucking spike right here? It's for every account buying fucking... They just calibrate right here with the fucking Smurf Russian who just fucking dumpsters. And that's why this fucking peak is so fucking high, okay? And because of Smurfs, it actually pushes more people into this realm.
ELO rating system. The ELO rating system is a method for calculating the relative skill levels of players in competitive games such as chess. The system is named after its creator.
So it's used in fucking chess, okay you guys, it's a 1v1 game.
Arpad ELO, a Hungarian-born American physics professor. The ELO system was not the first rating system to be used in chess, and many existed prior to its invention. The MMR system that is employed in Dota today is exactly the same as the ELO system used in chess, with a slightly different K factor.
So that's pretty much spot on, you guys. It would work in chess, StarCraft, Hearthstone. But in a 5v5 game, okay, it's not fucking sufficient. With intent feeders, smurfs, with everything. You shouldn't deserve minus 25 if your team is full of shit stains, and you do your best to fucking dumpster the enemy shit stains, but your team just feeds way too much, and the game becomes uncarryable. This is the reality of probably 90% of Dota games, okay?
Bloody fan. Hello everybody, my name is Goodboy and welcome to a special coaching vid.
And this one was the wrong one, okay guys. I may have just suffered a DDoS attack. And I'm having trouble finding the video I watched yesterday. It involved Goodboy and Jingo talking about why the MMR system is broken.
Hello everybody, my name is Goodboy and welcome to Why MMR is Broken and What Can We Do to Fix It. I have a very exciting special guest here today and it is the delight, the master innovator of videos. It is TZ Jinzo. How's it going, Jinzo?
It's going fine. Hello there.
The fucking god that is fucking Jinzo. He's done so fucking much for the community. He's a fucking god amongst men. He never had a Smurf account. He's the most fucking loyal, most fucking awesome Dota personality in fucking Dota.
I think you're probably giving me far more credit than I deserve, though. Not sure about the whole innovation business going on there.
Well, I rate you. And one of Jinzo's biggest videos, certainly a love of mine, is the history of Dota. Well worth a check out. I'll probably put some links in the description.
Yeah,
but
you know, that video took me forever to make. Around 35 hours. You can believe that.
35. Well, that's pretty impressive. Bearing in mind the average time of mine is about 10% of that time. I'm very impressed and also mystified how you managed to fit it in, but well done, absolutely. So you've released a video, a very exciting video on MMR and some of the pitfalls of the system. Can you just give us a sort of a brief synopsis of that and some of the kind of the main chunks that I think
Sure.
that the community want to know.
Give us your
Yeah,
fucking
I mean,
expert
it's actually
opinion.
it was actually quite an interesting video for me to make because you know we obviously care a lot about our MMRs and how the rank system works on Dota.
Addicted.
Yes,
Addicted.
precisely. I certainly am, and I'm always trying to get as high as I can in the ladder. But unfortunately, while it may seem intuitive that if you win a game you should gain a certain amount of MMR, and of course on the flip side is when you lose you should lose a certain amount. The issue is that with that is the Dota MMR system follows the ELO equation used in chess, and it hasn't really been modified to encompass how sort of all of the sort of dynamics that would be involved in a team-based game rather than.
So everyone is on the same page here. Everyone recognizes that this fucking ELO equation is a fucking shit stain equation, and it should be dumped back to the fucking Stone Age.
Than a single 1-versus-1 game such as chess, for example.
Yeah.
And,
so fundamentally flawed, basically, to use it.
Well, I mean,
very
I explain it in a bit more detail in my video.
And I might just fucking add that I respect Good Boy, and I'll never fucking bag him out. So he's exempt from fucking CLQ's trolling. But Jinzo, don't respect that shit stain too much.
But yes, if I yeah, so if I had to phrase it, if I had to describe the Dota system, I do think it is flawed, in quite a few ways actually.
And I actually agree with
so
him.
For example,
he is not in fact an expert.
With the ELO equation, it's very concerned about this whole K, this K value. And this is the maximum amount of MMR you're allowed to win per game. And in Dota, that amount is 50. And so when you have two teams with the same average MMR, then the amount of MMR that you'll win is, as everybody is quite familiar with, is 25. And because the win rate of your team is exactly, expected to be 50%. But the problem lies in when the MMR start to deviate. What happens when you play a team that is 50 MMR above you or 100 MMR above you? And I don't think the Dota MMR system correctly predicts your
this is where it really throws out the equation,
which is not quite correct in this case.
Yeah,
so
one of the examples that you mentioned was the difference between a team with 3,000 MMR on average and 3,100 MMR. So, i.e., very, very similar teams, and in terms of skill, I expect them to have a very, very similar level of skill. But with the team that's 3,100 MMR, there's actually a massive expectation difference in terms of win rate, isn't there?
Yes, exactly. Yes. If you were to plug in the numbers, the team with 3,100 MMR would be expected to win at around 64% of the time.
And that is just fucking bullshit, okay? A team that has on average 100 more average MMR is expected to win 64% of the time. When really the difference between the two teams, because the MMR system is so flawed, it depends so heavily on your team, that 100 average MMR difference is not an accurate representation. And they honestly believe that the 3,100 should win 64% of the time, which is pretty much wrong.
That's ridiculous.
Yes.
I think most players, whatever skill bracket you're in, even if you're in let's say you're 900 MMR, not 9,000, 900 MMR. When you play against somebody that's 1,000 MMR, I cannot believe the person with 1,000 MMR is going to have a 63% advantage over someone that's 900.
Sure.
That's
anyone over 100 MMR.
You'd be pressed to find anyone in the community that thinks there's that much of a disparity
in
skill.
Exactly, precisely when when you're playing casual Dota, playing your, some people play ranked games casually. It depends on the player, but people fluctuate in MMR all the time.
That was an incredible observation.
Hundreds, right? And so that MMR fluctuation, yes, exactly. So that fluctuation is far too big, and this is not just an interesting number that is, it's kind of nice to talk about, but this is a mathematical equation that has to be followed. If the win rate of the higher MMR player does not match 64%, or you would expect it to be averaged at 64%. So And this is taking the relative skill differences of players. So what it's also saying is that a player that is 3,100 should win 64% of the time against a player who's 3,000. But it's
So if you shoot a match, you're going to have a real hard time interpreting this video, okay? And I suggest you fucking go do basic maths and get a fucking education if
also
you
true
can't
regardless
comprehend
of
the
which
shit.
MMR scale you're on. So whether you're 9,000 to 9,000 against the 9,100 player, or if you're, as you said, 900 against the 1,000 MMR player, it should stay consistent. It should stay at the 64% win ratio, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and there's another problem as well, because the game is inherently biased towards cores, in particular mid cores, which you mentioned, I believe, you briefly touched on as well.
Yes.
And that's why there's a toxic community.
Much easier to gain a higher MMR as a core mid / safe lane carry hero. And I think there's a lot of evidence for this when you look at the highest ranked players in the world. So regardless of which sort of continent you look at, be it Europe or America, almost all of the highest rated players
great examples of great Dota thriving nations.
And the few players that are support, such as Kaka, for example, in China, he was the first Chinese player to reach 9,000 MMR. He didn't do it by playing support, even though he solely plays support, in tournaments, right? So he did it by playing various different roles. He's even forced to play carry in the games that he's in. Right? Because supporting, and be it solo supporting or doing your classical trading, is just not MMR effective.
Is neglected,
So,
which only continues to fuel and add to the problems in the Dota 2 community, which I think kind of, I mean, we'll touch on it a little bit later.
They can fix this, man, but they don't do
effectively,
fucking
if you're an excellent support and you're very good at supporting your team and making sure they win games, because supports win games, warding wins games.
Sure.
You will not be rewarded for it, and the guy that played mid-core will, basically.
Yes.
And that for me, I think, is tragic, and it messes the game up. It completely messes the game up. So yeah, absolutely. I think my kind of main sort of reflection on the MMR system is something that I've spoken to quite a few. And I've seen a lot of posts on Reddit, and it's to do with the whole account buying issue and Smurf issue. That is sort of, I think, continues to add to the community. I think one of the problems the community has right now, obviously, is the saltiness. And the thing is, like, some of it's like, well, look, come on, man, just stop being a dick all the time to people. But the other part of it is actually, well, hold on, besides positive mental attitude, actually, the entire system, the whole MMR system, is going to make people really annoyed, because it's just ultra grindy and doesn't reward the right kind of work and the best kind of people who are doing the best kind of contribution to their team, and that's sort of stuff just reward.
They don't reward anyone who's fucking a value, an asset to the community. They see us as expendables, and they only fucking matchmake high spenders with fucking good teams. So they want high spenders to have a positive experience, okay?
Well, you're mid, you're core, you're doing blah blah blah. But I think the other problem, like I say, is obviously second, third, fourth accounts. That's adding to inflation to the system, as I think you've mentioned before.
Yeah, it is.
But
just a quick point on
system
the whole
inflation is a huge
and the
issue.
sort of psychological problems that this kind of system causes. Is that
It does in fact cause fucking psychological problems, you guys.
because when we play Dota, right, if somebody doesn't tell you specifically that if you play core you're going to get higher MMR, you're going to have bigger game impact, because the general consensus of players is that we still want to tell ourselves that regardless of what role you play, you're always going to affect the game in a similar manner, right? But however, as we play more Dota games, we are told unconsciously by the game that it's really only the mid-core players and the safe lane players that have the bigger impact on the game. And so this is why so many people fight over those roles of fighting over mid and fighting over safe lane. It's because that actually, because of our experiences in the game, we unconsciously learn that in fact the higher win rates are the sort of mid or safe lane carry roles. And if you look at the account boosts and people who calibrate unfairly and sell off accounts, when they boost, the only heroes they play are carry and safe lane. I think that's another fairly good evidence for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that just continues to add to the arguments in the system, and why we see the toxic reality of 5 carry Dota, which just continues to just vex me severely. I mean, like I say, I actually gravitate quite heavily towards playing support, but mainly the reason why initially I took on support is because no one else would play support, and I was sick to death of not having any wards, and the enemy team having wards, and then getting completely destroyed in a game. So I was like, screw this, I'm going to buy wards and win some games.
Although I just want to say at this point that
I just want to say as well that supporting's not even that fucking boring. Like, if there's a Husker and you choose Dazzle and you get off some fucking sick graves, that's a lot better than being a fucking axe that's fucking 0-9.
I don't want people to think that because of the statements that we've made here that you can't gain MMR as support. Of course you can. You can certainly gain MMR and be quite good at the game. Just solo, just playing support or playing offlane.
What these motherfuckers won't tell you is that if someone fucking picks Bloodseeker, pick Pudge, and get someone else to pick fucking Tusk and get eggs. If someone picks Husker, pick Dazzle. If someone picks AM, pick fucking Magnus and give him empower until he gets Battle Fury. Like, just think of some wombo combos and fucking make it happen.
In these kind of pub games, it's completely possible. But it's just when you get to the higher levels of play, when you get to the high brackets, it becomes increasingly more difficult to become effective with the sort of support heroes every game.
Yeah, and exactly. It's tragic, really. So yeah, and I think the issue that kind of the whole account buying issue is a huge problem, because I think straight away it's really inflating the system, because anyone that's there are businesses out there, you can Google them, anyone can Google them right now, and you can find an account, they can get you a new account right now with about 4,000 whatever MMR. Now 4,000 MMR players is going to be really quite good at the game of Dota.
Depending on who you ask.
Relative, of course, to where the average player is, which is between sort of 2 and 3K. Vast majority of Dota players are between 2 and 3K.
Yes.
Then you've got a nice big chunk in the sort of three-ish bracket. By the time you get to 4K, the expectation is you'd be certainly considerably better at the game than somebody in a,
I'll tell you if you're good or not at Dota. If you don't fucking swap your treads all the time, drop items to heal, buy a fucking point boost about the mana 1 just to cast a TP, then sell it in the fountain. If you don't do all those little tricks, mainly the toggling of the power treads, you're actually a shit stain. But if you're fucking on point and when you're AM, you switch to Imp just to blink, you're actually a good player and you fucking understand.
Certainly 1 to 2K bracket, or even a 2 to 3K bracket. So you kind of have that sort of thing going on. And unfortunately, what's happening is you get loads of people who are, calibrating these accounts, then they sell them on to people who are like 1K MMR. They then use them. They're then garbage, of course. They play really badly. It badly affects the game. People lose them. And that's the thing I'm seeing in Reddit a lot. A lot of people say, I'm sick to death of losing games because I always get that one person in my team who's just diabolical at the game. And you're not expecting that at 4K. But also, you're getting all these new accounts coming in at 4K MMR. That's inflating the system massively.
Yeah, I think the original expectation...
And it is really bad for the sub-4Ks because they get pushed down and feel diminished. Because they're up against, they're in a 2K game, and there's a 7K fucking meepo. And this is an experience for fucking 5 people when these people are boosting these accounts.
For the 4K bracket was only around 1% of the player base was supposed to be 4K, but now because of all the unfair calibration system, also the amount of people who are buying accounts, now we're looking at around 10% of the population being at 4K and around 1% being at 5K or higher.
Yeah, exactly. And then you obviously get these ludicrous 9K MMR sort of scenarios. So that's a problem. And I think the thing that doesn't help is that obviously you can calibrate that high. I think if calibration happened say 3K max. So the maximum MMR you could calibrate towards was, if you were really, really great, say 3,500 MMR. I know they're 3 to 4K max. It's like, no, please don't put the noobs there with us. But but if you put it in a sort of that kind of max where you get 3,500, you're going to really damage the account buying, account boosting market, because what's going to happen is, not as many people are going to be interested in buying a 3K account as they are going to be interested in buying a 4K account. Don't get me wrong, there are people in 1K that will go for the 3K. Sure, that's better than nothing at all. But the interest is going to decline, which obviously would, theoretically make.
I don't see why there is an interest in purchasing a 4K account and just ruining thousands and thousands and thousands of games of Dota.
The game a bit fairer. The other issue, of course, is the smurfing, which I'm guilty of doing. I know quite a few players that.
I am very proud to say that to this day I have never ever smurfed before.
Oh, you're fucking
I'm seeing dislikes coming in right now and comments going, "Stop smurfing, good boy." But nonetheless, haha. The old second account, the dirty party in the affair, it's that kind of thing. But it's
so even someone who wants to fix the system,
an awful thing to do. But then that's the other problem is that, when someone does smurf, they usually win. And so when you're playing against a smurf, it's like, great. If he's on your team, it's fine. But when they're against you, it's like, that's kind of frustrating. But it's not. I don't feel it's the same as account buying, which is like different. Thanks very much for watching. If you like the video,
so there is a part two, guys.
Share it.
And they actually come up with some solutions.
No, it's not as bad. It's not.
It's kind of a grey area. I think there's forgiveness for this grey area. But if I get enough comments of people going delete the Smurf, I'll delete it. Do you know what I mean?
Are you sure? I have to take
that's not legally binding. It's not legally binding. But you definitely have that kind of issue with but the problem is typically, because of how flawed the ranking system is, you really struggle to move up and down the brackets, and I think that in the end becomes a really serious problem, because actually bad players take ages to drop, and good players take a while to come up. And actually, really, the MMR system should.
The whole world going outside, and you're just stuck fixated in the fucking zone, concentrating on how to improve your MMR when there's a fucking
in such a way is that actually the gravity should bring you towards how good you are at the game with those particular heroes that you play. And it should sort of gravitate towards that.
Exactly. I mean, if you had a 1K player buy a 5K account and he actually went in and played ranked games, he would be ruining hundreds, perhaps up to even 1,000 games before he's back where he's supposed to be.
It would take him so long to get down.
Exactly. And like I said, that's unfair on the higher school. So so solutions. So this is one of the things that you and I have been sort of mulling over.
It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one.
It is.
So let's hear these fucking expert solutions.
One of my ideas, and like I say, Jinzo, feel free to obviously to chip in there where the instant flaws with this one.
Sure.
But my idea was actually to have two sets of MMR ranking systems. So first one, obviously, win-loss ratio. If you win the game, lose the game, obviously, plus 25 or plus 23 or minus 23 MMR for losing. But also,
so win-loss ratio should just be a percentage.
Individual player skill system. So that is the idea, depending on how well you played. So that is.
So I reckon it should just have a percentage of how many games you win, and next to it should have your game impact. Okay, how much you fucking help out the team in the game and fucking dominate in the game. So there's a percentage of your win ratio, but people can also see who plays more impact in the game.
KDA, XP per minute, GPM. Those are probably three good ones to do. If you're a support, possibly stuff to do with like ward stacking and everything. Let's pick XP, GPM, and KDA. Yeah. Maybe not so much GPM, because obviously that's not favourable for support.
Well, I mean, given that Dota buff can correctly, or very very accurately guess what role you play.
So Dota buff already implants technology.
Dota itself can easily predict, what role you played in each game, what position you played without.
These fucking advanced computers aren't fucking stupid, okay? The Valve computers are fucking inferior to the Dota buff ones. If you don't have a Dota buff account, promo code BSJ, check it out. It's a much more advanced than the fucking shit Stayman installed into the game.
Very much sort of computing power whatsoever, and so the code itself could determine, you know, which role you played, and also, you know, interestingly enough, it could even balance you against all other players who played that role. So, for example, if you play Crystal Maiden, position 5. The algorithm could balance your Crystal Maiden play against all other Crystal Maidens in the world at your exact MMR that played your exact lane and also your exact position. And then they could compare how well you play it against those other players.
Exactly.
And then you can lose or gain bonus MMR. It shouldn't be massive, right? It shouldn't be so big.
No, exactly. It can't be game breaking.
But just a tiny amount of bonus or minus bonus MMR for roughly how well you played as a Crystal Maiden versus all those other players. And I don't know if they, you know, it's difficult to say because it's nice to think about these ideas on paper, but when you put them in practice, I think there are a lot of mathematical fallacies that could happen when because it's not immediately obvious, which is the same for the ELO system. You know, the fallacies are not immediately obvious, which is why we have this issue on Dota at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. But I think if you think about like mobility in terms of traveling through your brackets, I think it's also, and also if you get an unfair game, because one of the biggest things that Dota players complain about is that when they get teamed with numpties, basically. So they get, you know, you're like, great, we've started a game. Oh, great, we're carrying Dota. Straight away we're in trouble. And then somebody's playing, say, Spectre, and they're feeding hard. You know, and it's like, oh, come on. No, you can just use your spectral dagger and escape. No, oh, you've died again. You know, you're having those kind of moments. And basically, even though your game is tight, even though you're farming well, you know, or if you're supporting, you're warding well, you're doing everything for the team, but your carry or whoever is feeding all the time and diabolical, you know you're going to lose, or it's very likely you're going to lose the game, and you get really, really vexed. And I think if you've got a system that goes, well, I'll tell you what, look, yes, you've lost the game, that's minus 25 MMR. However, you actually played really well. You didn't feed lots. You weren't toxic to the other players. You know, it's obvious that you were actually playing a good...
I just want to say, fucking commends are underrated. If you get commended on a regular basis, you should be fucking receiving extra badges and shit. They should really buff commends. And instead of just reporting misconduct, we should keep it PMA and fucking tell people well played.
Despite the failings of, you know, other team members. So here's, you know, say +6, +7, maybe even +10. I don't know how big we want to do this, but here's +10 MMR because you played well. And then equally in the same game, you know, they've got this toxic feeders like, I hate you all, F you all, you're all noobs, F you. And then they feed all the time, and then they deliberately feed, and it's obvious. It's like, look at, you know, it's like 1 kill, 18 deaths. You know, it's like, oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah, there are a lot of games where it's quite, you know, obvious who
I'd say about 75%
in the game. They get minus 10 MMR in addition to their loss. So basically, even so that, and I think that in itself really comes off players playing badly or doing.
I think a lot of people are actually more concerned with how fair games are rather than how accurate MMR is. I think while it's nice to have an MMR system which tries to represent your true skill, obviously, you know, no such perfect system can ever exist. It can only be a rough approximation. However, I think people are very much concerned about, you know, how fair the games feel, because one of the counter arguments to what you said is that, well, if you play an infinite number of games, then you're just going to reach your, you know, expected MMR anyway, right? So what if you have a few unfair games? It's just as likely that somebody else has a feeder on their team. The thing is, when you get a feeder on your team, regardless of how fair the next game is going to feel for you, because, you know, if the next game the enemy team has a feeder, you're not going to have an enjoyable game. You'll win, but the game is not going to be fun. Because you're playing a 4 versus 5, and you know you won because
if someone feeds, I'll fucking win.
And so the games need to feel satisfying. I think that's something which the current MMR system is lacking. It's that if you have a feeder on your team, there's nothing that you can do, right, except perhaps report him. Hopefully he gets the low priority games, you know, to prevent that guy from doing it. And he doesn't get punished any more than you do for losing. Even if you're trying to, you know, play your best, you're playing your best hero, you're trying to farm and be positive, and there's just one guy who simply doesn't want to cooperate.
So if you fucking get called out feeding, you should have to wear the MMR loss of everyone on the team, and all the other players should remain +0.
Yeah, and it's crap. But then when you see the MMR difference, you know, the game's over, and it's like, well, hold on. Even though I've lost 25 MMR, I've gained 10 MMR because I played well. So I've only lost 15 MMR. And that guy that fed the whole time, he's lost 25, and then he's playing really badly, and it's even possibly intentionally feeding. You know, he's lost another minus 10 MMR, so he's lost 35 MMR for being a schmuck, and I've only lost 15.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
as an example. And I think that makes players feel a lot better. And I think also because their individual play style is being rated, as well as, you know, whether or not they won the game.
Yeah, I think people will be pressured to not play heroes for the first time in ranked, because in ranked you often see players playing heroes they can't play. But if they know that they're going to be ranked against everybody else that plays this hero, it's very unlikely that they're going to play a new hero in a new ranked game that they play. Which is also another positive about our quote hypothetical system that will probably never get implemented.
Yeah, I know, right? We'd have to like a million views on all our videos, and like a massive Reddit group going, "We want Jinzo and Good Boys system," you know. So
while they do have some good ideas, Valve will never fucking fix this shit. Because it's a psychological.
By the way, if you do want to do that on Reddit and other Dota communities, please by all means do. You know,
we'll
spam.
See how popular my video is, because because the way, obviously, you know, everything I'm saying in this video, just don't take my word for it. You're gonna have to see the sort of the more academic approach on the video that I made before you should believe everything that we've said here.
Absolutely.
The one thing I do want to say that's a little bit unrelated. If you spam Shadowfiend to get from 2 to 5k, and you're in a game where Shadowfiend gets banned, you're a fucking 2k player.
Absolutely. I'm gonna leave. Yeah, absolutely. I'll leave that video definitely in your hands. Links, by the way, are in the description, everyone. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the thing, and I think maybe the last thing we should end on before, because this is now a part 2 and part 1 video, because we've taken 22 minutes to record this, so that's fine. We'll do this in part 1, part 2.
Sure.
But is also the bias towards roles, and I think there needs to be a redress on how MMR is awarded to support and cause, and also where you are. You know, so sort of if you're playing support off lane or support safe lane, there needs to be some sort of extra benefit, as it were, or extra rewarded MMR for playing, you know, well as a support. I mean, what do you think of that?
Yes, it sounds good in principle, but I think that there are some problems with this, because it's quite hard to implement. And right now, the issue is right now the vast majority of high MMR players are, you know, solo carry players, solo mid players, and the safe lane carry roles, right? So you do have a few players who are sort of core, not core support, but right, just support players, right? Who are able to get those 7 or 8k MMR sort of rating. But the issue is that they were only able to get it. For example, if you see Kaka, the first Chinese player who managed to get 9k, he actually main support, right? But unfortunately, he had to play carry roles in his pub games to be able to reach it. Because if you ask any of these professional players, they will.
My question is, why does he care about his MMR? If he's a professional support, just play support, and who gives a fuck what your number
I'm not sure if they'll admit it on camera, but they'll happily admit to you that the roles that they take, generally speaking, in these pub games, or rather ranked pub games, are all sort of like mid or carry roles, because they know that, you know, their effective MMR is not going to be very high by playing support in these games. And I think that's another fundamental flaw in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think looking at some sort of you know, better recognition on the MMR system for the role you've played as well. I think, and to be honest, perhaps
Valve read Reddit. They know that people are frustrated. They know that they want to fix the CLQ, and they just ignore it and fucking keep on the psychological
perhaps the very fact that we've talked about, you know, personal MMR, because they're comparing to all other Crystal Maiden players, you know, in the world that at that particular rank. And if you played well, you get that bonus MMR because of comparison. That probably would help level out the balance, because what's going to happen is all those core players that are always winning all these matches, well, hold on, we're comparing you to all the average core players mid. It's like, that's a very high standard. So straight away, your personal MMR ranking is going to be slightly lower or higher based on, you know, the average of those players. So even though it's a much higher standard anyway, it's like, well, hold on, you're not getting much MMR gain, or even slightly negative MMR, because you're actually playing slightly below what they're playing. And so you can't grind up MMR quite as effectively. Meanwhile, a support player is like, well, actually, you're playing a really great support. Here's some bonus MMR for playing such a good job as support. And then you've got these other roles suddenly being balanced. And I think ultimately, I think one of the biggest problems the Dota 2 community has is saltiness. You know, it is salty, and
the reason why the community is so fucking salty is because, let me explain it like this, okay? In soccer, if a defender lets a goalie score a goal, a striker, if a defender lets a striker score a goal, the score just goes to 1-0. In Dota, say if the defender lets the striker score a goal, the striker gets more experience, more goal, more farm, and the defender becomes weaker, poorer, and so then it starts to snowball from there.
And it really helps. The MMR system really helps exasperate people's salt.
It does. It really does.
And I think when you've got your own, you know, your win-loss ratio, but also your individual score ratio, I think that gives a lot of players who win or lose matches a sense of humility or encouragement. You know, you lose a match, but hold on a second here, you've gotten like 6-7 MMR here for playing well, so it's not that bad. And actually, you are seen as a good player, and that's encouraging for players that lose or are having a losing streak. And equally, you know, for players like, I'm awesome, I'll keep winning my games. And it's like, well, actually, hold on here. Compared to other players in the world, you're actually kind of a bit crappy in this bracket.
That is a very valid point. One thing I do really want to add is, imagine baseball, okay? A hitter hits the ball to an outfielder, and the outfielder just blatantly drops the catch. In Dota, the outfielder has to give the batter 400 gold.
And you're actually losing, you know, 4 or 5.
As well as the on-base hit and all the other jazz that comes with
6, 7
MMR,
just for being.
But
you know,
I think it's going to be very challenging to ban. I mean, I don't have any immediate solutions yet. I have to think about it in my own time. But the problem with this is because ultimately, in a game of Dota, the end result is.
And while we're using sport as an example, I'm sorry to cut them off. Imagine in a baseball game, for example, or even in a soccer game. In a soccer game, if the team had no goalkeeper, there was just no one in that team that could use their hands. And the enemy team had a fucking goalkeeper. And he was allowed to use his hands in the 18-yard box. One team would be at a massive fucking advantage. Imagine if you were playing baseball and you had 6 pitchers, no first baseman, and 4 shortstops. You wouldn't be able to fucking play. And this is what Dota fucking is.
What matters when it comes to competitive game, right? It's about winning, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit weird to sort of not really lose very much MMR, even though you lost the game, if that makes sense. Because I think the ultimate goal of the game is to win. And if you lose, but you're not really punished for losing, I think it's going to be a very sort of difficult sort of thing to be able to balance correctly. And like I say, ideas that sound nice when implemented. You know, there are going to be all sorts of sort of nuances, if you will, to the sort of system that we've just created here, that we obviously don't know the sort of immediate implications of.
So the reason why sport is really fun to play and Dota is really stressful to play is purely because sporting teams have a coach. They allocate every player to position. Everyone listens to the coach. Everyone listens to the captain. Everyone plays their position and knows their role.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we end on that? And I think what I want to say is to everyone that's been watching these videos, you know, obviously thank you very much for watching. And Jinzo, thank you so much for your insights. And I'm loving the mathematical science. It's fantastic. But I think we'd love to hear from you now is your comments and your reflections. Everyone that's watched this, what you think would be the best way to deal with the MMR system. What do you think of the proposed idea that we've had? But also, do you have any ideas of yourselves as what you think it would be best? And so please do comment below. You know, give us your thought. We'd love to hear from you. And like I say, I think we probably possibly do a follow-up video as well on kind of people's reflections and thoughts. And who knows, maybe this could be, you know, sort of the unlikely beginning of changing the MMR system, so
hey, look,
it helps the players in the game.
Our videos might be rubbish, but if there's one good thing we can do for Dota, if we can convince somebody to take a look at the MMR system and improve it somehow, I think we would have made some really decent progress there.
That I could end my YouTubing career on that.
So
note. So, and everybody, thank you.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It's Jinzo here. I hope you're all doing well.
Jinzo.
Apologies for not making more
shit
videos
star.
recently, as I've had to move
Fucking
apartments.
has never played a team sport in his life. Doesn't know what a fucking properly organised team is. He only knows what shit-stained fucking Dota games. So he's never been outside, he's a skinny little fucking run.
Problems one may expect.
So let's see what he has to
Fear
say.
not, I will be returning to my normal routine shortly, and I think I want to create some more innovative videos. Anyway, nonsense aside, let's talk about the topic we're actually supposed to be discussing, and that is the top cognitive biases that prevent you from getting better at Dota. This is a very interesting topic for me, because I feel as if Dota 2 as a community is one of, if not the most competitive community in all of gaming. And so then it doesn't come as a surprise that a lot of Dota videos on YouTube are about commentary, gameplay, replays, and different guides on how to get better at the game. In other words, we really care about our MMRs. But what about the psychology behind getting better at the game?
I don't even think all people watch tip guides, okay?
So that leads us on to
Only a
point
select
number
few
one.
of Dota players
This is the
watch
so-called
videos on how to play.
self-serving bias. Now, if there is one cognitive bias that prevents you from getting better at the game, it is almost certainly going to be this one for the majority of people. So then, what is the self-serving bias? It's quite straightforward. It's any cognitive bias that causes the individual to have the tendency to perceive oneself in an overly favoured manner. In other
I just want to say quickly, I'm the greatest fucking Dota 2 player the world's ever fucking seen, okay? I just constantly fucking dump snoops. I'll show you guys time and time again how to fucking dump snoops back to the fucking Stone Age,
this particular individual will ascribe their success to their own abilities and efforts, but when they fail, will ascribe their failure to external factors. A practical example of this is a player who wins the game and he will say that, well, we obviously won because I carried the game, pointing at his score.
Every
On
game
the
I
other
played,
hand,
we
if
won
the same
because I carried the
individual
weight
were
of the
to lose
team
the
on my
game, he will
shoulders.
say, well, my team was trash. There is absolutely nothing that I could have done to win.
And if anyone's watched my live streams before, you'd know that I'm often and the highest MMR in my team. And I do get paired up with a fucking bunch of shit stains that fucking feed the game
It's
away,
got nothing
okay?
to do with me. Now, obviously, there is no doubt that there are indeed a lot of games that perhaps you couldn't have done anything about. So I did a simple experiment to demonstrate the self-serving bias by asking some of my friends and viewers what their MMR is and what they think their MMR should be. So I did this with a varying number of different players, and they ranged from, I believe the lowest was 300 MMR, and the highest was around 6,500 MMR. Now, the results were quite interesting. 75% of the players said that their MMR is much lower
And 75% of players are right because the MMR system is so fatally
than
fucking
what it
flawed.
should be. 24% of the players said that their MMR is roughly where they should be, and just 1% said that.
And I'd say that this red zone, this 24%, spend a lot of money on skins. So Valve are constantly trying to fucking cut their balls and suck their dick while they fucking
Their
funnel
MMR
money
is
into
higher
their
than it
system.
should be. But to explain this better, I need to go on to point number 2, the second cognitive bias that prevents us from getting better at the game, and that is the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias in which lower ability individuals mistakenly assess their ability as much higher than it should be.
Does that remind you of anyone, guys? Because I'm just fucking picturing banana shit saying fucking slam jammer, thinks he's the fucking best coach in the fucking world, thinks he's fucking top shit, biomedical engineer, high school fucking athlete, professional fucking athlete today, and confirmed sex
The
habit.
Dunning-Kruger effect also makes a second assertion, and that is, high ability individuals may sometimes underestimate their relative competence versus everyone else, and they may also assume that because a task is easy for them, it must also be in turn easy for everyone else.
Sounds
So
exactly like
effectively,
these,
the
Joe.
Dunning-Kruger effect is saying that some Dota players are so bad at the game that they can't actually evaluate accurately how good they are at the game or what the right decisions should be. And
That
on the
kind of
surface
reminds me
level,
of me,
this sort
guys.
of makes sense. Because
I
you're a
don't know
low
how much of a
ability Dota
fucking
player,
god I truly
there are a
am.
lot of unknowns for you. You're ignorant of the fact that there is so much in the game that you're simply unaware of. So any theory or strategy that you create will be based off a very incomplete version of what the full Dota game should be. Now, to fully appreciate the magnitude of this problem in Dota, we go back to the survey that I carried out, and then we can really understand the power of the Dunning-Kruger effect. I asked a very simple question: what is your MMR and what should your MMR rightfully be? The results were very interesting because it seemed as if the lower the MMR the player, the more inflated their belief is that their MMR should be. 100% of the players under 2000
do you know why that is
MMR
true,
told
guys?
me that
Because the 4K fucking Smurfs calibrating flat out at 4K, it just fucking inflates the system. While Miracle and that get to 10K, other motherfuckers get forced down to fucking under 100
their
MMR.
MMR is much lower than it rightfully is. Around 25% of players under 2k MMR actually believe that their true MMR is around 4000, and more or less the rest of the players believe that their MMR is at least 1000 to 1500 below what it is at the moment. And then a minority of 2k players answered that their true MMR is actually around the high 4k/5k bracket. In fact, I asked a further question. I asked, well, why is your MMR so much lower than what you rightfully deserve then, in your own opinion? And the most common answer given was simply, my team is rubbish and it's literally impossible to get out of the 1k/2k bracket. It doesn't even matter how good you are at the game, it is literally impossible.
And I don't think that is overly untrue, you guys. I honestly think that is the case with fucking 75% of Dota games. Even in professional fucking Dota, you watch it, someone fucking feeds the game away.
Now moving on to the next bracket, which is between 2000 and 3000 MMR. 80% of the players here believed that their MMR is much lower than it should be. The general consensus of 2k MMR players is that they should be around 3000 to 4000 MMR, and a few select of them believed that their MMR should be around the mid 4k to 5k range. Once again, the most common answer given as to why you're not at high MMR or why do you not have the MMR that you rightfully deserve is exactly the same as the players under 2000 MMR, and that is, my team is terrible and that is why my MMR is so much lower. The Dota players around 3000 to 4000 MMR are a bit more sane, and 60% said that their
So, boy, he's giving shit to people below 3k MMR, and he's done the fucking maths. He knows about inflation. He knows about these people getting squashed right down. And he calls them insane for fucking playing Dota and having feeders in their game. You play a fucking 2k game, or under, it's full of
MMR is
feeding.
much lower than it should be. So in fact, 40% of the 3k players think that their MMR is rightfully justified, and when pressed about why their MMR is lower than it should be, once again the most common response was, my team sucks, therefore it's not possible to get higher MMR. However, a select minority replied, around 30%, said that the reason why they're not 4K is because they simply don't play enough Dota. And that seemed quite reasonable to me. If you don't play enough of the game, then it's quite hard to progress onto higher tiers of gameplay. Now, when asking 4K MMR players what their MMR should be and whether or not they're being undervalued by the system, just 30% said that their MMR is much lower than it should be. The other 70% seem to be okay with their MMR.
So guys, having that 49% fucking rate of victory Okay, 49.99. That's good. That's fucking extremely good. Right, and if you play an infinite number of games, this is what your MMR is. Fat zero. And 49.99 reoccurring.
MMR without any major complaints. And when asked, why is your MMR not higher than it is, the most common response is now no longer, my team sucks, but actually a wide variety of answers. Some people have suggested that they don't play the meta heroes, they play heroes they enjoy playing rather than the meta heroes, and therefore their MMR is quite hard to increase, for example. Another answer is simply that they don't play enough Dota, or they play Dota with their friends too much, so it's hard to actively improve on the game. That is also another very common answer. And surprisingly, a small number of people even simply admitted that they're not very good at the game, and that even though 4000 MMR is well above average in the world of Dota, they don't have any real aspirations to ever hit 5000. And finally, when asked if players were over 5000 MMR, just 10% of them said that their MMR is much lower than it rightfully is. And interestingly enough, not a single 5k plus player that I asked blamed their team for their MMR. For example, one particular player said that the current meta does not have heroes he's confident with, and his best heroes are not in the meta right now, and that's his disadvantage. Another player even simply admitted that the reason why his MMR is not higher is because he rages too much and he loses his temper. The argument was that if he didn't lose his temper and played calmly all of the time, he should be able to hit 6000 MMR from 5700. And the only player who admitted that his MMR is too high is a player with 6.5k MMR, and he simply said that his MMR is probably too high because all he does is spams heroes who are in the meta. He then went on to say that if he played heroes that he enjoyed playing rather than heroes that are in the meta, he would be at least 500 MMR lower. I think what all of this suggests is that in the end, if you're always looking for a way to blame your team for your own failures, then you are going to be unable to see where you made mistakes and how you can actually improve your game. In fact, I would go so far as to say that it's better to analyze games that you lost rather than games that you won. And I know it sounds rather boring, but one of the easiest ways to improve at Dota is by analyzing your own games and your own replays. And finally, of course, by analyzing your replays, you can then have a look and see how you perhaps could have won the laning phase, that is if you did lose it, and what heroes you should have focused on teamfights. Perhaps you should have farmed more, or perhaps you should have joined more teamfights.
This is just basic fucking stuff.
All we have time for today.
There's nothing to do with the broken MMR system.
I'll be trying to release more structured videos in the future, and videos, as I said, that are more innovative, I think, because I haven't been very happy with the quality of my recent videos because of all the things that I've had to deal with in real life, which have sort of delayed the amount of time that I've had to produce better content. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you stick around, as in the next
videos, content I've ever fucking seen, okay? Go onto his Twitter, go onto his Instagram, give this channel a fucking follow. Because all he's trying to say is that fucking you think you're hell better than you are, or you think you're BSJ, and you fucking underdoubt your ability, or feeders don't exist in Dota. That's what he's trying to say. Feeding is just a figment of your imagination, and it never fucking occurs in Dota. That's what he's trying to say. That feeding is a figment of your imagination. And let me just type it in here. Thousands of videos of fucking toxic C player feeding. Try hard feeding 600 MMR anti-mage. Let's have a fucking look at this. This is what Dota is all fucking about, guys. And this Nate Hig is a professional fucking troller. And I'm not gonna watch this is just fucking disgusting. This is what Dota's fucking all about to me. This is what I fucking see at least 2-3 times a day. This fucking, not this bad, this is obviously intentional. I like the fucking unintentional feeding, where you don't know that you're a fucking retard, and you think you're actually fucking a sick cunt. As you can see, Dota 2 is in fact the most toxic game in the world. Let's see this. Alright, let's go to the countdown. Halo. It's not toxic, the fucking teabag is fucking classic, okay? That's fucking, if you get butthurt over getting teabagged, you're a fucking feminazi. Any Call of Duty fan is a fucking idiot. Call of Duty died in Modern Warfare 2. World of Warcraft does have a lot with the fucking ninja looting. Global offense can be pretty fucking bad too. So you've got FIFA. Coming in at number 3 is in fact Dota. Over League of Legends. Let's see what they have to say here, guys. Any experienced professional Dota chef will tell you that a perfect omelette takes years of training and precision. Dota 2 takes and throws 4 other Gordon Ramsays yelling in your face while you make your omelette blindfolded while juggling chainsaws. That is a very accurate description there, you guys. So I'll say that again. Any experienced professional chef will tell you that making a perfect omelette takes years of training and precision. Dota 2 takes that and throws 4 other Gordon Ramsays yelling in your face while you make an omelette blindfolded juggling chainsaws. The game requires insane amount of mesmerization and often at times contradictory tactics. I learned multiple new words from playing Dota, and whenever I didn't know any of them or perform any of the new actions I was taught, I was deemed unteachable and shunned. And as Dota is so hallucinogenic towards new fucking players, okay? New players need to fucking point out that they're new, and they will get coached, and they will get helped mid-game. And let's see this is controversial here, because it starts off with saying, none of you... Now, some of you might say that Dota is worse than Mega Legends in terms of difficulty, which it undoubtedly is. But League takes everything I said before and has some little kid set the chainsaws on fire, in his opinion. The most team cooperation I have seen, not as much as Dota. The whole game seems collapsed with one fucking shit stain. And it happens in Dota too. This Reddit user played obviously a lot more League of Legends than Dota. And the one fuckwit causes the whole game to fucking collapse, okay? And that's pretty much fucking why Dota is a shit experience. And if you do other things like buy a full drive, go full driving, buy a dirt bike, get a boat, fucking partake in team sports, do some yoga, do some fucking meditation, do anything but have your fucking brain suffer fucking DDoS attacks from fucking Dave Grohl, fucking shit stain that head of Val doesn't give a fuck about anything but money, and we're all committed fucking to a good game that was created back in the fucking day on a Warcraft 3 engine is now being fucking terrorized, made corporate, and fucking will in fact die unless something fucking drastic happens. Charles Barr, sorry.